Everyone, I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you all to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 regular board meeting of December 5th, 2022. Would everyone please rise and together join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Miss Marianne Southwick, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Harker, Superintendent, and to my left is Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Vice Chair, Miss Leslie Bierke, Board Member, Miss Heather Tenbrink, Board Member, Miss Allie Anderton, Board Member, and I'm Rebecca Smith, Chair of the Board. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of this meeting. Please sign in on the sheet provided in the back by the entrance door. Comments may also be submitted to the board via email at trustees@cdaschools.org or in writing through the clerk. Thank you. Can I have a motion this evening to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Well, hang on real quick.
And
Yeah, there's an amendment to it.
Okay, I'll move to amend the agenda to include the October and November meeting minutes, which had been inadvertently left off of the agendas when posted.
So I will second the movement to amend the agenda.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then second, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. This evening, we have a great honor of recognizing one of our close community partners, one that transforms the lives of students and adults with disabilities and provides them choice and opportunities, and they've worked with our school district for a number of years. I'd like to welcome up to the podium here, Miss Marcy Hartzell, who is the CEO of TESH, and we'll come around to the front.
Right here in the middle.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to read some things about TESH because TESH does such great work and I don't want to miss the details. So, you really should know about TESH if you don't already because they do such great things in our community and with our school district. This not-for-profit organization has been serving families in Kootenai County and the surrounding areas since 1976. In those 47 years, TESH has served over 20,000 children and adults with disabilities and their families. It's a huge impact. Guided by their core values of choice, dedication, integrity, progress, and quality, TESH offers 3 primary service programs for youth development, employment and training, and independent living. TESH has been a valued and recognized community partner of Coeur d'Alene Public Schools since 2003, and we're happy to celebrate 20 years of this partnership tonight. Here's a few highlights. TESH has provided employment opportunities for over 40 graduates with disabilities. TESH has partnered with our high schools to provide work experience to help students complete their senior projects. TESH operates a commercial services program, including janitorial services staffed by individuals with disabilities. And for the past 10 years, the district has used TESH's janitorial services at various schools, including Coeur d'Alene High School, Lake City High School, Canfield Middle School, Lakes Middle School, and Woodland Middle School. TESH programs currently employ 9 graduates of our district, including 4 who are custodial supervisors. What TESH stands for and the work that you do every day matters, not just in the lives of those individuals, but it matters for our schools as well. And so tonight, we want to present you with the Board of Trustees Inspiration Award. Here, would you like to say a few words? And then let's applaud.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. I know we were first going through this when Scott invited me here, and I've only been with Tesh for a year and a half, but as you can hear, the history is much longer. I think it started probably 2003-ish, initially with Project Search, and that partnership, Tesh was an original partner with Project Search. We also worked with the school district with behavioral intervention a long time ago with kiddos who needed some special help. And so we've been in this community for a long time. We appreciate and value the partnership that we have with the school district, and we hope it continues. So thank you very much.
Here.
Perfectly behind Marcy. Yes, I turned and I hid. Should have photobombed.
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Also tonight we have our Teachers of the Month and our recognitions.
All right. So for October, the elementary teacher of the month was Sherry Hansen. Sherry's colleagues say Sherry will go the extra mile and about 27 more to ensure that every student in her care is successful. I had a kiddo with her in the Kinder Center, so I agree. For our middle school teacher of the month, it's Becky Orchard from Lakes Middle School. She's a health teacher there. Her principal said, Mrs. Orchard has a tremendous heart and is willing to help the students and community in every way possible. Our high school teacher of the month in October was Carlos Gonzalez. He's a math teacher at Venture High School. His principal said, in Mr. Gonzalez's classroom, student thinking is a top priority. He is an outstanding teacher who knows that each of his students is capable, and he helps them prepare to use math and problem-solving skills in their daily lives. And then as we move to November, our elementary teacher of the month was Allie Bershaw. Allie brings a light to our building, according to her principal. Her commitment to her children and school community is commendable. Our middle school teacher of the month in November was Sarah Lilyquist. My kids have also had Mrs. Lilyquist, so I agree with this one too. Her principal said Sarah has an engaging classroom presence and she is an instructional leader in our building. Some of her qualities as a classroom teacher include adaptability, empathy, and patience. And our high school teacher of the month in November was Diana Adams. She's a special education teacher at Lake City High School. Mrs. Clifford, her principal, said Diana is kind, nurturing, supportive, empathetic, and patient. Diana not only teaches her students and manages her staff, she leads her department. Her organizational skills are unsurpassed. And additionally, we've had a fun honor this month. Tanya Lilly from the Lakes Middle School, she's a history teacher there. She won the... she was named Idaho's Outstanding Teacher of American History by the Daughters of the American Revolution. And her colleagues say she is a phenomenal teacher who brings American history to life. So big congratulations to all those teachers.
Thank you. Up next are our student video presentations, and so I believe CHS is first. Is that right, Scott?
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, district employees, and valued community members. My name is Nate Bullock, the ASB president of Coeur d'Alene, and tonight joining me in tonight's video is ASB Secretary Kendall Hansen and ASB Treasurer Andy Jane Howard. Over the month of November, we had our All for All drives. Over this month, we had drives for Corte Casa, an art supply drive, the Kootenai Humane Society, and Union Gospel Mission. We want to thank the community members and the Viking family for being a part of this amazing drive.
Last Thursday, we had our first boys basketball game at home, and tonight we have our next one. Our next girls basketball game is on the 6th, which is tomorrow. Last weekend, we had wrestling in Bonners Ferry, and we hosted Drama State here at Coeur d'Alene.
Student Council has been hard at work putting on the finishing details for Fight for Fish, and we are so excited. This year is the year of the Pirates, and we hope to keep the fish for yet another year. We've also been working on some holiday fundraisers, so keep an eye out for that.
CHS Student Council is very thankful for all of you guys, and we hope you guys have a great holiday season and stay safe on these snowy roads. Here at CHS, we are constantly bleeding blue through and through, and we hope you do too.
Have a great day and roll lights!
Thank you, CHS. Next up is K-Tech.
My name is Kelly Holbert, and I am enrolled in the MA program.
My name is Lissa Rogers, and I'm in the MA program. Right now I'm working on pediatrician appointments, so we're going over head measurements, how to measure a child, their weight, their length, how to communicate with the parents on how to place the child, all that kind of stuff.
We've done a lot of vital signs, so taking blood pressure, temperatures. We've also done a lot of ear, nose, and throat stuff, so doing eye irrigations, ear irrigations, stuff like that. And we did a lot of different kinds of patient care, so like rooming a patient before an appointment for the physician, doing telehealth appointments, so checking allergies and checking medications and seeing if I need to get anything else up to date with them.
Some of my favorite parts of the program are learning new skills, but also I really love when we do patient interviews, talking to people, learning what's causing them pain or what they're going through, and just trying my best to help them.
I really enjoy skills, like a lot. I love learning about them and memorizing them and then putting them into practice and mastering them to the best of my ability. I plan on using my MA certification in practice and using it in some sort of facility, wherever that may be, while I study paramedicine, and hopefully, crossing my fingers, eventually become a paramedic.
For graduation, I plan to attend Baylor University to study pre-med, then going to med school. After graduating that, I plan to become a pediatrician and hopefully work at a private practice.
Perfect. Thank you so much, K-Tech. Our last video then is Adventure.
This year, Venture welcomed over 180 students with their family and friends at our annual open house and barbecue. The students received a passport that guided them through various stations so they could get to know the staff, school, and everything Venture has to offer. At the end of their tour, they turned in their passports for a chance to win some amazing prizes. Venture High School has begun wellness classes again this year. A wellness class is a hobby or activity that is purely for fun. This is an activity that you would normally do outside of school. Venture wants its students to feel welcome and as stress-free as possible. The target goal is to get the kids moving and their brains working. So the school came up with a way to interact with students through fun hobbies and activities. The classes are taught by the Venture teachers, allowing them to also share some of their favorite interests. This year's selection includes a bike club, rock climbing, chess, games, string art, guitar, ways of reducing stress, lure production, karaoke, and field games. October 25th through October 28th, Venture had a fun spirit week leading into Halloween. On Tuesday, students dressed in school colors. Wednesday, kids brought anything besides a backpack to school. Thursday, they dressed up as senior citizens. And to finish off the week, on Friday, students wore their Halloween costumes. Students also decorated the hallways and classroom doors with their advisors to help brighten up the school. Tradition is very important for students and staff at Venture, which was shown in the annual Thanksgiving dinner we celebrated the week before Thanksgiving break. The delicious tradition has been continued here for 45 years and counting, as a way for students and staff to eat and enjoy time together. Students in the culinary class helped with the meal preparation as the leadership students decorated the cafeteria to fit the Thanksgiving mood. Students also participated in a thankfulness challenge, where they filled out I am thankful for forms with the idea that leadership students would gather then and create a school-wide display in order to showcase all the ways Fincher students practice gratitude. It was a great way to head into the break.
Thank you, Venture. And tonight I'd like to welcome Lake City High School students to give us a presentation. Thanks.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and district administration. My name is Jacob Carter, and I'm the ASB president at Lake City High School, and I'm joined today by my ASB secretary, Olivia Azzolini. It has been a busy last month here at Lake City with many clubs, activities, and events all in full swing. First off, we would like to congratulate our girls swim team for winning the 5A state championship in Boise at the beginning of the month. We are very proud of all of our girls and boys swimmers who did so well in all of their respective events. They represented our school and community very well, and we could not be happier for them. Furthermore, we held our annual Fill the Bus food drive the week before Thanksgiving break, and it went amazingly well. Our school was able to bring in over 2,000 pounds of non-perishable food items for our community through donations of goods. A big thank you to our Sources of Strength director, Ms. Fundheller, for all of her hard work on this event. We are very proud of our student body for working so hard to advertise and make this event a success. In activities news, our wrestling, girls basketball, and boys basketball teams have all started their seasons. Our teams are all off to a great start, with our boys basketball team even being proclaimed as the consensus #1 team in the state. If you've been around LCHS in the past, you may have noticed our brand new Jumbotron video boards. These boards are an awesome addition to our gym and game day experience, as well as serving as a great opportunity for our media students to create graphics and displays for the board and get some good experience in the sports and entertainment field. We'd like to invite the board and community to come experience our stellar game day environments at one of our upcoming basketball games or wrestling matches. Our student council has also been extremely hard at work in our preparations for Fight for the Fish 2023 coming up next month. Our school spirit has been amazing, and we are looking forward to showing it off at the big event, as well as looking forward with CHS on our second annual All for All fundraiser. While competition is in the air, we are still focused on togetherness and serving, and not us and them, but we. Both schools will be collecting items benefiting Family Promise, St. Vincent de Paul, Safe Passages, and Union Gospel Mission. All items will be distributed to each organization by members of both LCHS and CHS student councils. We are currently gearing up for Christmas festivities at LC. Ms. Tolzman is running our annual Ugly Christmas Sweaters campaign, and our teachers are having a great time displaying their questionable fashion choices. Shout out to our D-Hall teachers for taking it way too seriously, as usual. Mr. Terrell is also running our annual UGM Christmas campaign to provide Christmas presents to women and children living at UGM, and we're excited to be able to bring Christmas to kids in our community this year. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you tonight, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much. Let's give all of our schools.
I press it again.
Thank you so much. Great. Next, we have SAG, our Student Advisory Group, to give their reports of what they've been working on behalf of our schools.
Dry? All right. Okay. I'm getting better. Good evening, Dr. Hawker, Ms. Southwick, Chair Smith, Mr. Derrick, and board trustees. My name is Dylan Jones, and I'm the head chair of Student Advisory Group. I'm joined with Vice Chair Luke Sharon, Middle School Representative Ryan Gonzalez, and Elementary School Representative Sierra Jones. To start off with the high school, in our past meeting, we discussed the dress code policy furthermore, and SAG members continued discussion on a Arizona district's sample policy with Mr. Derrick, and we have sent these suggestions to the district office. We also continued our fight policy discussion at potentially creating and amending a fight policy that looked at both sides of a fight and how we could look at a skyward discipline referral for that student's future.
Yeah, and then we also discussed bathrooms and privacy. We continued that discussion. We wanted to thank the district and the school board for listening to our concerns on the topic of privacy. We've been told that the urinal dividers will happen. We are grateful for the expansion of this discussion and are anxious for a result. In addition, we were informed that Lake City is in process of providing a bathroom for students who don't feel comfortable using the main bathrooms. We also discussed ways in which we can better our school community. SAG members discussed in ways we can provide better mental health awareness at our secondary schools. We discussed the bringing back of school mentors. We believe that a more unified student body starts with a community that is positive and kind to everyone. Through the bringing back of freshman mentoring, it gives new students a person to connect with.
And last but not least, as a group, we plan on running anonymous surveys with our secondary schools to help gain us more knowledge to further impact our schools. And now on to Ryan Gonzalez with the middle school group.
Our last meeting, we talked about the dress code policy and what we thought we liked about the current dress code policy and what we think should change. And we also were talking about our results for the middle school survey. And we thought that we needed more results, so we're just going to keep it out there and just wait and see if we get more results.
Last but not least, our elementary school group with Sierra Jones.
Hi, my name's Sierra Jones, and I'm in 5th grade, and I go to Ramsey Elementary. Thank you for letting us fill you in on what our meeting on December 1st was about. We were able to take a look at our new SAG posters that will be posted in the elementary classrooms, and we are very pleased and excited that this was approved for us to do. We also broke into 4 teams and went through suggestions that came from the elementary schools. We broke them into different categories, such as this suggestion definitely needs to be talked about, this suggestion is probably better served at the local school, and another category would be that this suggestion wasn't really a suggestion. Ms. Babb will share the information with the instructional core team. Some of the suggestions were that kids wanted more choices for drinks at the schools, more playground equipment, and definitely more time for lunch. We are coordinating with the nutrition department director about lunchroom ideas. One team worked on questions that would work for a student survey, and we are excited about getting permission to do this. We had a great conversation. I was the minute keeper, and our representatives are excited to meet with all of SAG in January. Till next time, thank you for your time.
And that concludes our monthly SAG update. We thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much. Any questions, trustees? Yeah. Thank you so much for your work and for putting your time and your efforts for things that impact students. So thank you. All right. Next, we have public comment for this evening. And so I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It's a meeting of the board to conduct district business. The board does allow some limited public comment on district-related items, and those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to 1 comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. At the designated time, you'll be called to the podium. Please state your name and your city of residence. Please keep in mind that the board members will not respond to public comment. If you have handouts from the board, please give them to the clerk, who will give them to all of us on your behalf. If I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. If you have additional comments that you would like to be presented to the board, please provide those comments in writing, and we will receive them. Thank you. This evening, Mr. Matt Edwards, you are first. Is Matt still here? He was here.
Chair Smith, I saw him step outside. I think he got a phone call and he stepped out, so I don't know if he had to take off. That was about 10 minutes ago, kind of right when we got started.
Right, yeah. All right. Okay, and he's not coming back. All right, Mr. Green, then. Mr. Bill Green.
Thank you guys for your service and for an opportunity to speak a little bit. I always say the volunteers should get a triple in their salary, but I say it over and over again. So I just want to talk a little bit and mention one idea I've been thinking about in terms of your levy request for perpetual levy, and also the other one. Thinking about ways to get information out to the community, which I think is always a positive step. The more data you have, the more information you have, the better decisions people can make. So I'm here to promote ways to provide some of that information to the public. One idea I've been thinking about was come along the lines with what the legislators do when they come up for their town halls during a session. They come 2 or 3 times a year, and they all get lined up in a row up on some tables, and someone sometimes moderates it, sometimes not, and then people write down questions on these little cards, and they pick out questions to answer, and sometimes they just have an open microphone, which is maybe not always, doesn't work really well sometimes, but sometimes it does. So I was thinking about if you could have a meeting where all of you were up like on the stage, and a couple of the administrators who know a lot about finance and some history of the district, you could answer some questions possibly that I've been hearing floating around the community. One is, we voted so much money this year or that year, and some of us wonder, where did that money go? Was it spent on the things that was requested, and is there a way to show us that that money was spent on the items that people said were needed? I've heard that comment. They says, well, we voted money for this project or that, but and we never really saw if it happened or not. I don't know if that's true, but the idea of coming to the community and saying, thank you very much for the money you voted for us. It's a sacrifice. We want to let you know how that's been spent. And hopefully you can do that in a way that would be supportive of future ideas, because if you do good with what you've got, you get more. As I said, if you're grateful for a few little things, you end up having more things to be grateful for. That's kind of an old principle, I think. But I just wanted to throw that out as an idea, that a way to start. I know you're going to have a campaign eventually for publicity and a firm to try to help get people on board with this idea. And so I think the more you can do to promote back and forth communication and knowledge about how money has been spent in the past, as a ground for hopefully being able to spend more, or spend money efficiently is what I really mean, not just more money, but money that's spent efficiently and for the purpose that it was meant. So I just think that the more you can do along those lines, and I was thinking that all of you know board policies and history. Some people in the administration know a lot of history, and I think some people in the administration know a lot about the history of finances. And you could probably go back a number of years and point out, we got this much money this year, that much money that year, and here's what we did with it. And we hope that what we did with it was a way to improve the educational experience for all the students. And I'll have to say that in the last few years, I've become a huge fan of public education. My mom was a public school teacher. I went to 5th grade in public school, and looking back on it, I think that was a better experience for me than it was in a private school. And she put me through college on her school teacher salary, although she did teach across the line in Spokane Valley. So I would just like to encourage...
And Mr. Green, that's about 3 minutes, so
okay.
If you want to finish up your thought.
Just out of the thinking, I don't know if it's out of the box or not, but ways to get people engaged in wanting to understand more about how the board works, where the money goes, how important it is for students to have a well-managed education. And you might get some questions that might be uncomfortable. I'm not sure about that, but some people have questions about the ambiance, the kind of the personal, social, cultural, spiritual stance of what kids run into when they go to school. A lot of parents want their kids to grow up with a good moral foundation, a good sense of what works in society, and a good sense of the history of a free society and what goes into that. Anyway, that was probably more than my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Green. And I do believe, just so you know, and that everyone else knows, that in January we will be having another kind of trustee night, just like similar to what you kind of described. And so we'll take those ideas and apply it towards that evening as well. So I know we're working on a date for that. Thank you so much for coming. All right, I think that is it for public comment this evening. We have our consent agenda right now. Not heard any questions or anything. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening?
I will make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through M.
I can second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, hearing none, that our consent agenda tonight passes. All right, we've got board consent then. We've got a few things on that are out for information. Any discussion or questions on any of those items A through D for Dr. Hucker?
Yeah, just real quick, I'd like to address item C in the administrative procedures there. Dr. Hawker, thank you for, we're working on this procedure. I know last month when Chair Smith was absent and I was running the meeting, I had leaned over, I think before the meeting, and just said, we need to get some consistency, or suggested we did in our public comment periods. Some meetings we've had at 45 minutes, some meetings it hasn't been noticed, and I just suggested that we pick one or the other and go with it. And that if we went with 45 minutes, that we should allow for that time to be extended with a board majority vote. And so I appreciate you for bringing that procedure. It's actually not a policy, it's a procedure that highlights that. I think a question was raised today from a patron, and I think it was one we all kind of wondered about previously anyways, but I did talk to legal counsel today. It would require a vote, and she can work with Marianne just kind of how it'd be posted on the agenda, but basically the agenda that's posted for the public would say, similar to what it says now, that you're limited to one comment not to exceed 3 minutes. The total comment period will be 45 minutes unless a majority of the board votes to extend it. So that way it'd be noticed on the agenda all the time, and we could vote at any time. I think the patron was worried you couldn't amend the agenda because it wasn't, or you couldn't amend the time because it wasn't posted on the agenda. So I'd maybe ask that we just hold this procedure while we clear that up, because and see if get the right words in there, I guess.
Not a problem at all. We'll do that. We'll work with Megan, and we'll bring it back to you next month.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions on any of those information items? All right, let's go on then to policy 2377. Any questions or discussion on that policy? This is our animals in schools and classrooms. There was no public comments given according to this. Any other additional information or questions? All right, Blue, I think Blue is here, right? Blue, this is another moment.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve policy 2377 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Nope, hearing none. Blue, you're in again, so terrific. Our next policy is policy 7430, which is in regards to travel allowances and expenses. Again, no public comments were submitted for this policy. So is there any discussion or questions regarding policy 7430? All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 7430 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that policy is approved. Thank you. Dr. Hucker, well, now we're on to superintendent's report, but the first thing is just maybe some updates on the ISBA convention report that was just held here in Coeur d'Alene last month. And so any comments or things for the community or the rest of the trustees to know kind of about that experience, what was here?
Well, I'll start. This was our first time going
4 of us were able to attend, and Dr. Hawker. It was so nice that it was here in Coeur d'Alene, and I don't think that's happening again, which is a shame. But it was a wonderful conference, especially the 3 of us new people learned a ton, so I was really grateful for the opportunity to get to go this year. So that was good.
I'll add on a little bit. We had a couple keynote speakers, and we had 7 opportunities for workshops. And then at the end, we had a business session where ISB voted on some resolutions to present to the state legislature for this legislative session coming up. Personally, several of us were in a couple workshop on strategic planning and superintendent evaluation, and I think we got some good info and some good ideas from those workshops. So that was some of our big takeaways. And then I also attended a workshop that had to do with questions to ask about our budget before approving it, and I found that to be a really helpful workshop as well. So it was a good experience.
Yeah, I'll just say the strategic planning and the superintendent goals that we were, all 3 of us were able to attend that one. I think what we were able to take away from that will help us to really streamline and work together a lot better as a district. So I'm really excited about that. As well as really trying to pump up the culture of our district and get everyone excited about a culture of ownership within our district. So I think that's about all I have to add to that. So it was a very interesting experience for sure. Something I look forward to doing next year.
And I'll chime in too and make just a shameless plug. The conference was so well attended that is the reason that we're hearing that it might not be brought back to the resort at Coeur d'Alene. They're out of space. So several of the breakout classes. It's on, just not working. Well, let's just use this one. Okay. The conference is so large, there just wasn't enough space. They had to have some of the breakout sessions out on some of the cruise ships, which I personally thought was pretty cool. But some people must have not liked that, I guess. I don't know. So long story short, I guess we need a new convention center here in Coeur d'Alene, or we need the resort to add on or something, and then we can certainly get it back here. But right now I'm hearing it's going to go back to the Boise area for a while. So anyway, it was great to have it right here in our backyard.
Terrific. Anything else? I know it's always been, I was bummed to miss it this year. The last couple of years have been really valuable and really educational. So thanks. All right, let's go on then. We've got a high school schedule proposal, an update. Dr. Hawker, would you like to?
Yeah, we'll just introduce Trent. Before you've got a packet of information, again, mostly just information, and I'll turn it over to Trent to highlight that and answer any questions if anybody has.
And I don't know, Seth, if you can put that up on the proposal up there, or if you need me to do it, I'm not sure if I can do that. So, but I just wanted to, well, first of all, Board Chair Smith and trustees and Superintendent Hawker, just an update, a brief update on what we talked about last month. As you notice on that proposal up here, there's not a lot of changes to what was presented last month. Part of it was when talking to the principals, both Mr. Randalls and Ms. Clifford, felt like we just need a little bit more time, and with the Thanksgiving weekend there, and then a snow day, and we're going to move our firm proposals recommendations to the board for the January meeting, and it felt like we still had enough time for the first reading and the second reading to be able to do that. But an update on those: we're still looking at graduation requirement changes with PE. Moving that to the ability to have some students get a PE credit by taking extracurricular activities. There's some question about what would meet that requirement. Is it one sport? Is it 2 sports? You know, that type of thing. So we want to meet with our PE department and our curriculum department in order to solidify what our proposal and recommendation is. Same thing with the TA courses. We talked about that. Ms. Clifford talked about that in her proposal. The only thing that we're looking at that's a little different than what we proposed last month is there are some TA courses that are more robust. I talked to the shop teachers, and they said there's significant training that has to take place for TAs that are in those classes. And then Ms. Clifford did talk about the office TA being a little more robust. So maybe changing the course code to like an ATA, advanced TA, where those particular TA classes would be 1 credit as opposed to 0.5. So just a minor change on that. And we're still looking at the 58 to 60 credits for Lake City. I know there was some discussion, conversation, questions that you brought forth as far as should those electives be in the STEM fields or maybe a specific course content area. So questions are, would it be better to have students to have more of a choice? Maybe that CTE is a better choice for them rather than maybe a STEM field. So there's some ongoing discussion on that. We want to get more input from some of the staff before we make a recommendation on that as well. The biggest thing that I've actually put up here that's I just want to briefly touch on, and that is the graduation recognition. That would be a pretty significant change that's articulated in our policy 2700P. And currently it's based on GPA, 30 credits, and then the an unweighted, or excuse me, a weighted GPA. So we understand that that would be something that would be for the incoming freshman class. It's not something that's going to affect any of the current classes that are in the high school level right now, because you'd want to start with a clean slate for all students so they're all on equal footing. We're going to spend some time, I'm going to put together a committee of staff members, parents, administration, in order to do a deep dive into the pros and cons of that type of change. It is a pretty significant change to the traditional ValSal that we have right now, in the sense that we look at a cum laude system. It would recognize more students, which I think is positive, but there are some logistical things that would really have to be worked out in order to do that well. So just wanted to kind of update you on that, where we're at with that particular agenda item, or update item that I put on the projector right there. So I don't know, any questions that you have at this point?
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
Our PE requirement to graduate is a local requirement, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. When we went to the Ed Law Conference, and I can't remember her last name, Amy White. Thank you. She strongly discouraged giving credits for extracurricular activities, because then it's a co-curricular activity, and that just changes a whole lot about it, including we can't charge the travel fee. Some of our athlete contracts wouldn't be able to be used. I personally would be more open to just dropping the PE credit. The other problem I have with just giving a PE credit for a sport is that opens up a space, for instance at CHS, that opens up a space for students who play sports to take another elective, but not, I'd rather open up space for all students at CHS to take another elective. So, I mean, I don't know how other trustees feel about that, but I would prefer to drop the locally required PE credit rather than get into what I think is a little bit of a minefield, making our sports
Right.
co-curricular.
No, I can see that. You know, to be honest with you, I hadn't thought about that with the legal aspect of that, making it co-curricular, because
Right.
it could affect.
I hadn't thought of it till I went to the Ed Law
Yeah, it could
Conference and she
affect
brought it up.
the, you know, the code of conduct and everything else that we
Right.
do if it's taken for credit.
So that's one thought I have. And I also like the idea of, I think kids at CHS could use a little more room to choose some electives. And by doing the sports thing, we're offering that opportunity to some of our students, but not all of our students.
Right.
As far as the extra electives at Lake City, I really would like to see those in some core subjects. I agree, CTE is great, but the advantage of the schedule at Lake City is there's a lot of opportunity to choose your electives. So I strongly would like to see us focus on some more core science, math, English kinds of electives
Yeah.
with those. That's my thought on that.
Yeah. No, that's appreciate it. You know, those are the types of that's the type of feedback that's really important to us as we go back and discuss that in more detail. So, no, certainly appreciate that, and I think it definitely has merit.
I think I'm lockstep with Heather on that one.
Okay.
And I think I made it pretty clear last time. But, you know, and I think they could be some really creative classes that that I know Lake City could come up with, whether it was, you know, math and construction or something. And maybe that's something that CTE kids are interested in, or, you know, something specific that helps them tie those things. You know, I remember from my own days in school, it's, you know, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? When am I ever going to use this? And I think the more that we can tie those skills to kind of real world situations, the more buy-in there is from a student. You know, that's kind of where I was. Geometry was the one that kind of clicked for me for math, and I could see it in space and angles and all those sorts of things. And so it was my most enjoyable math class. And so, you know, I think the more we can do that, the better. And on the English side, really, Lake City has a lot of those classes already. I think they have, you know, film study type classes that have to do with literature and all those sorts of things. So I think some of it's just tweaking that. On the TA thing, I understand what we're doing there. I'm still, you know, by dropping it from 1 credit to a half credit and 4 to 2, we're still given 4 TA opportunities, assuming they're in the traditional TA role, which seems like a lot to me. It seems excessive. I'd rather see it maybe capped at 2, whether they're the 1 credit version or the half credit version. 2 opportunities, right? You could be a TA no more than
So
twice.
2 semesters.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's actually, that's helpful. That was the purpose of this particular time, is Dr. Hawker and I talked about it a little bit more. So just the update and getting some more clarification from the board, you know, is really very, very helpful.
And I have a question that came up this last week over electives.
Yeah.
On kind of repetitiveness of electives. So if I took jazz band, I'm going to pick, and I'm big into jazz band, could I take that 8 times and get 8 elective credits for that? You know, so I took it every semester for 4 years?
Yeah.
Or can you only get an elective credit once for a course?
No, well, there's, Dr. Nelson, you might be able to help us out on, I know not all of the electives are like that. It's like you can't take every elective, you know, 4 times. But I know in our performing arts department, you know, that is definitely one. And our drama, I think, is another one that we can do that in. You know, I'd have to, well, I'll defer here because I'm fairly new here.
PE, I think, is one I kind of caught wind of that currently students can take, have PE
multiple times,
take it multiple times and have it count as multiple electives.
Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board, good evening. And yes, in cases where there are limitations within the schedule, for example, the student has a partial schedule, they might have high interest in a particular course area, like we talked about with drama, for example. Electives can be repeated for credit.
Can all electives be repeated for credit?
Within Skyward, that is how they are all set up. However, it's in the counseling process that ultimately that comes in. Students aren't just choosing to do that all the time. It's usually with some sort of deferment process that happens.
So if you were trying to take movies as literature 6 times, your counselor's gonna...
Correct. Okay. There's gonna be some intervention there that will say, no, we really need to advance you. Our job is that when students graduate from our school district, they have a diploma, and that means something for them as a pathway to their next adventure. So we counsel students to make sure that whatever we know from their 4-year plan, whatever their college and career objectives are, that we're leading them down that place. If, for example, a student has a high interest in a particular area, that may be a consideration to help them, or we do an independent study of some sort to be able to adjust the coursework to be able to meet their needs.
I do know that with, you know, like jazz band music, et cetera, you know, those are
courses where students continue to improve their skill throughout the time, and that's an important avenue for them to be able to do that. Where if you just retook, for example, movies as literature, it might be difficult to do that, to get better and better, during that 4-year plan.
Sure, and jazz band probably wasn't a good example, but it was one I came up with off the top of my head. Because I know, and your skills are going to advance right over the time, but that's one I might do a little more peeking around on. I think that's interesting there, and I think there may need some cleanup on that personally. But.
Yeah. So PE is one of the content areas that you were talking about as far as an elective.
That's just one. I just wasn't sure how it worked, so I just want to ask. That's how it came to me because I had heard of someone in many sections of PE.
Yeah.
And so it just made me wonder, I guess, how that worked.
Yep. No, I'll look into that for sure.
One of the questions that I have just regarding what you've presented tonight is that when we sent all of this work back to the schools to really figure it out, and to give some agency and some ability to be creative and those types of things. And I want to respect what Mr. Randall said in that maybe a schedule change is the only way to do that. One of the things, though, that I'm seeing on here is that the intent was to, especially at CHS, create space for students for more electives. And I guess I'm just not seeing that here at all, except in one PE, maybe opportunity. So and what I'm seeing here, is there any other creation or space at CHS for kids to take more electives or room in their schedule or anything like that? Because what's being presented and kind of the road that it seems that we're moving down is really that's not part of the discussion.
Right.
And
well, with the current schedule, the only option that I see is kind of what you mentioned, Heather, is that, for example, PE is not a state requirement. Technology is no longer a state requirement. World history is no longer a state requirement. So if those were removed from the local requirements, that would open up more electives within that current schedule. So aside from that, we are talking about a schedule change and, looking at what that would look like moving forward.
All right. So I guess I agree with trustees as we've talked, I guess even next month then, so that we can have some discussion about it. I would like to see us have a discussion about some of those electives because I'm still concerned about there being not a lot of space at CHS. Yep. And so I guess at this point, if that's the avenue, that we at least have to have a discussion on those.
So the local requirements versus the state requirements.
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's the only other avenue to create some space, I feel like we at least have to have a discussion about that to give the fullness of this ongoing discussion some attention. So if you can bring back some information about that, and maybe we just agree that that's fine and that's where it lands. But I feel like with this board, I'd like to at least have a little bit more of a discussion on those, with the hopes of creating additional space at CHS. So.
Right.
I believe speech would be the other course. That's a local graduation requirement and not a state requirement.
No, speech is a state requirement, but one of the things that was presented,
you could embed it.
You can embed it. Yep.
So if you could bring back all of those so that we can at least have a discussion and information in front of us to decide, because we are such a new board that we haven't had that discussion. And for me, my care and my concern is that CHS kids have additional options.
Yeah.
And so.
And Chair Smith, just to add, at last month's meeting, we did get a good update from Principal Randalls in regards to what's really changed since 2019. So I think it is
right.
good
And
to take a
I
big
saw
picture
all
of
that,
things.
and
additional courses have been created. But you're absolutely right, just as Principal Randall said, to truly create as many electives, for instance, as Lake City, you've got to adopt Lake City's schedule. To significantly improve electives at Coeur d'Alene High, you've got to get away from the current schedule. But we've had year and a half since I've been here conversations about that, and the current benefits of the schedule right now seem to be supported by the majority of our community and our students and our staff. because of the constant, the increased contact time that each of these fewer courses offer to students. So that there's a trade-off with all of this. I think timing is everything, and as has been presented, freshmen will start to pre-register for coursework very early this next spring. And so with policy changes, our intent is to kind of redline some policy recommendation changes. We'll certainly bring that back to you at your January board meeting. And then depending upon how that all looks to you and works through, you may need to go back and remodify some of those policies again. So maybe we'd be looking at some additional modifications at a workshop in January. But essentially, you'd want those to get out really for first reading at least sometime in January so that they could be approved in February, so that the kids and faculty and everybody, if we're talking new course designs and all that stuff, that's all got to get going by February, March. So we're ready to go for the school year.
Right, which originally was why all of that was going to be brought back today. So just, yeah. So thank you for
you're
that.
welcome.
Just a couple more superintendent.
Just real quick on that one. Trent, I think when it comes to the grad recognition portion, and I know there's a lot of work to be done there, and that you guys are just going to start on that. The one thing that raised my eyebrows is maybe the panel that's selecting, because it seems like that could get really
subjective,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's
why I put
what's
it out
that look
there.
like, who's on it, and that's just another political thing, and we all know Coeur d'Alene can get super political, right? So, I don't know. I think there's going to have to be a lot of details there.
Yeah. No, anytime you're dealing with a committee that's selecting, that's not an objective, it creates its own set of challenges, no doubt.
Questions that I would have on that is what's being done locally on that, what's being done in the state, what's being done nationally regarding all that, so that our kids continue to be competitive on a national level as well. So if any of that kind of information can come back to us, that's things I'd be looking for.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
I think the majority have gone the cum laude route, I believe. So, yeah, I think it's really changed a lot.
Right. So I just
Like I know
want
all the
the
Spokane
big global
schools
picture
run
of what's
that,
being
and I
done.
think all the Boise,
local, regionally, and everything else.
West Ada do that too.
The biggest benefit that we recognize of that is more students recognized in each of those categories, which opens more post-secondary opportunities. There are more scholarships. If valedictorian and salutatorian is often 1 or 3 or 5 kids, maybe 10 in large school districts, and that's it. Being in those other cum laude classifications can create additional groupings of kids that open the door for more scholarships, and that's certainly maybe a good thing too, but definitely something we'll take a longer look at.
I mean, there's certainly for Val Sal, it is a game. I mean, and there's, at least for Coeur d'Alene High, there's a playbook. If you want to be Val Sal, this is the route you go. And if we're talking about opening up opportunities for electives, chasing Val Sal is not a way to open up the opportunity for electives, because there's a certain set of coursework you have to take, and great for those kids that do that, but it doesn't allow much for electives.
But since you mentioned a playbook, I'm not sure that playbook is available to
no,
all
it's
of our
not.
kids.
I know it's a private playbook.
And so if it's a private playbook on how to get there, then I want all kids to know how can they shoot for that from the get-go.
Right.
And I don't think that's clear, and that's unfortunate. So.
I'd agree.
All right, let's go on then. Any other questions or comments on that? Let's go on then to policy 4105. And Dr. Hawker, this is public participation in board meetings. Any
Yes,
comments on that?
This is just an update from School Boards Association that would allow you, there was an emergency, I wouldn't say emergency, but yeah, maybe an emergency update to this policy that would allow you to have a board meeting virtually. And it was kind of coded, it was stated here, during a time of health emergency. Well, now we may or may not want to have an online meeting related to specific health emergency. And so school boards has recommended that this policy be updated. So our intent is to share this out for 30 days with our community and see what their perspective is. It would require you to simply make sure that from a participation perspective that we're clear in that announcement that, okay, hey, we're going to have an online meeting next month, let's say, for our meeting. And oh, by the way, this will be the process so that you can participate remotely in public comment. And we just need to clear that out. And that's identified in 4105, that you would just have to pre-identify that as we post that meeting. Does that make sense? So that's the primary update to 4105 that we plan to send out. Any questions about that one? If not, I'll go to the next one. We've got,
That'd be great.
got three more here. 4500. Let me click on that one here. That's dealing with gifts and donations. Shannon and Katie Grotman worked through this one, and this edition just addresses library donations. If somebody brings things into the library, we just simply want them to follow the library policy and procedure that you've already adopted. And so that line, that addition to this policy's in there for that clarification. And the next one is policy 7400. That is a procurement policy. Let me open this up here too. Shannon's here, of course, could answer any questions. I'm trying to find the big red. There's a couple of minor little updates in this. This is the update. The final two policies have to do with, we've always referenced, primarily because of these two policies, we've referenced consent for information. And that is confusing to a lot of folks because you don't consent to get information. Consent is an actual action item. You're giving consent saying yes or no. So we want to update this and kind of get the word consent agenda item out of this policy so it is clear. So it just says for information. That's the next two policies that do reference that specific lingo that's always made us have a consent for information line item in your board policy. So moving forward, if this policy were to receive formal approval in another month, then the following month after that, you would just see board information on your agenda instead of board consent information. It's really semantics, but we just want to make sure that the public gets to see, has a better understanding of what's being formally approved by the board versus what's being information presented to the board. Is that clear?
Could it say the superintendent, currently as proposed, it says the superintendent or designee will report the purchase to the board for information at the next regular board meeting. Would it be more clear if it said superintendent or designee will report the purchase to the board as an information item at the next board meeting? At least that kind of follows our agenda, right? We have information items, action items, all those sorts of things. So an information item would, it notes that it doesn't need a vote, right? It's just.
Shannon, any gut reactions to changing that instead of just for information? Or change it to as an information item?
You know, I kind of suggest something maybe a little different that we might want to think about is ratification instead, because they are essentially approving it after the fact. It's not advance approval. So maybe just a suggestion. That's what the prior state I was in, it was ratification.
Instead of for information, for ratification.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, it seems like that requires a vote to me to ratify something, and this doesn't require a vote. This is
I think it's
under Sean's authority to make these purchase decisions.
You vote for approve the consent agenda, right? Or is it just
consent agenda? Yes, but the consent info agenda we do not vote on.
Okay,
that's where I think it's confusing.
Yeah. Okay, got it now. Yeah, I think Casey's suggestion is fine.
Okay.
I mean, that's essentially what you did this month with the agenda. Item 6, it says board consent, additional info.
Yeah,
it was presented as an info item, right? I mean,
and it's really the same thing for policy 7407. Those two are both there. So we'll we'll make that change, and then we'll just send it out, get some community input information, and bring it back and see how that goes. Okay.
And just a little history on that it used to not say at the next board meeting, and this is kind of my early years, so 8 years ago, like all of a sudden you'd get, oh, we did all this over the last 6 months, and so
Gotcha.
That's why it changed to that, or maybe it's at the end of the year kind of thing we did. Transfers was kind of the big one that I remember, but I think there were other things in there too. So that's why it's to be reported at the next board meeting.
Sounds good. All right, that's the last item on superintendent report.
All right, thanks. All right, just so everyone is aware, January 9th, 2023, our annual meeting will be here at Midtown, and that's our next meeting. And we are going to move here pretty quickly. We'll take 5 minutes just to allow the room to kind of clear, and we're going to move into executive session. I'm going to read this, per Idaho Code 74-206, 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student, and to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code. And so, yeah.
I would suggest while we're in open session that we vote on that.
Okay.
And then maybe take our
And then take a 5 minutes.
5-minute break and as the room clears, and then we'll
Terrific.
be in it. And we've done that. Otherwise, really, the public could stay to watch us vote. So we
Right.
take a 5-minute recess. They get
Okay.
to still stay.
Thank you. Thanks. So is there a motion to move into executive session per Idaho Code?
I will move into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206, 1B.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
No, she has to do.
Oh, roll call. We can do it now.
Roll call. Chair Smith.
Yes.
Vice Chair Millerstone.
Yes.
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 All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. Drive safe. The roads are icy. We appreciate it.